a brief hiatus, we're back here inside Manhattan basketball. Christian Heimall along with the head coach of Manhattan men's basketball, Steve Masiello. Coach, just the 7th sweep of the Buffalo trip in program history. Team able to go 2-0 on that Western New York swing. When you look at this weekend, what did it do for this team in terms of momentum, in terms of confidence?
I just think it, kind of reinstated us getting back to who we are. I thought for the most part against Canisius came out with the right mindset, really defended, had great urgency with Billy and the rest of the guys, played our brand of basketball, and got a great road win. I thought Niagara, we didn't play very well. We didn't come out with the right mindset from a defensive standpoint, even though we started the game terrifically and got up on them, I think 10-3 and then I think 13-3 or 12-3, whatever it was. And we had a lot of steals early. Our mindset, we got away from it as the game went on. Mm-hmm. And missing free throws really hurt us because we couldn't build on our lead. Great weekend overall, building momentum. You want to peak personnel-wise in February, and that'll lead to your team peaking, and we're starting to do that. Shane Richards starting to play well, George Beeman, Ramel Brown, Ashton Pankey, a lot of different guys making big plays, Sean Stores, and so we're getting pieces coming together for this home stretch.
You talk about the early starts to the games, 14-1 at Canisius, 10-0 at Niagara, predicated off of defense, but the offense was really clicking as well.
Yeah, I think what's happening right now is the word trust is a big thing. Mm-hmm. George is trusting AP, AP's trusting Ramel, Emmy's trusting Rich is trusting Rashawn. And that's what happens 23, 24 games into the year. You know what you're going to get from guys. George doesn't feel the weight of the world if he's seeing a double team or guys are running at him. He has no problem throwing it to AP. If AP's getting double down situations, he has no problem hitting Ramel on the dive. And that's what you're starting to see, great trust. And when you trust one another, it makes you very difficult to prepare for.
When you look at Ashton Pankey specifically, go back to St. Peter's, Canisius a double-double, Niagara started off a little slow but still made a solid impact as well. Where are you seeing his biggest improvements?
His mindset. Mm-hmm. He is really feeling as welcome. Mm-hmm. And that's a big thing. And you say, well, why wouldn't he feel welcome? Well, you're looking at a young man that came to this program with great expectations, transferred from the ACC, and a young man who's very hard on himself. He's a very misunderstood player. A lot of people think, well, he has bad. He doesn't. He's the hardest on himself, more so than I am. And what I've tried to work with him on is, big fella, let me be hard on you. You just do your job. And he wants to please Ramel and George and Emmy and Mike so much that he wants to do well. It's all coming from a good place. And what we've worked on, and our staff, Mike Marucci especially, has done a great job of really getting him to channel that emotion in the right area. And you start to see it, like even though he didn't have a great game at Niagara, he missed, I think, 7 free throws. He still had 7 and 7. That should have easily been 14 and 7 for him if he makes his free throws. And it wasn't one of his better games. But he's given us a legitimate presence inside to go along with Ramel Brown that you got to prepare for.
You go back to the Canisius game and up 16, Canisius makes a run, they get within 2, and then a big 3 by Shane to quiet the run. Second half, they get to within 3. Another basket, I believe it was Emmy who hits it to quiet a run again. To be able to do that, and you talk about responding to runs all the time, but it took the crowd out almost immediately right after Billy Barron tried to get it right back in.
Yeah, and anytime you're playing against one, a good team, and then two, a dynamic player like Billy, you got to prepare for that, or Mace, or Sean, or any of the guys in this league that kind of take a game over. It's going to happen. But I've said this going back to the Bahamas. It's not your ability to, good teams make runs, it's how do you handle adversity in life. 10% is what happens. 90% is what you do with it. That's what I'm proud of with these guys, and it's kind of been the same statement over and over for this team. We get up, they make a run, we respond. That's what it's got to be. Good teams can do that. Now, I don't know if it's this league, I don't know if it's my coaching, I don't know if it's our players, or I don't know if it's the referee. But it's, and I know what it is. I'm just going to put it out there. It's very hard to pull away. Now, we got to take some of the brunt of that because we're missing some free throws. But I think a lot of these games are called, and it comes down to the wire. And you don't see kind of the point differential. And the whole conference, that we're teams, you don't see teams going and blow teams out by 25 on the road. It happens in other conferences, doesn't happen here. Some people say it's parity. Some people say it's bad coaching.
Tops of the MAC.
I have my own opinion.
Tops of the MAC in scoring margin. It's only about maybe plus 5, 6, I believe, at this point. But just as a personal, I've never seen a first half take an hour of real time like we did on Sunday. It was
Hour and 2
after,
minutes.
it was after 3 o'clock when the halftime finally hit for Manhattan and Niagara.
And just so everyone knows what I'm saying to referees during the game, I'm a emotional person. I'm never on them. I'm communicating with them, and all I simply say is, the first 10 minutes, we are playing the exact same way. The second 10 minutes and a half, what's changed? We haven't, and you can't play the first 10 minutes and only have it called a certain way, and then the next 10 minutes called a certain way. All I look for is consistency. If you're going to call it that way, I'm going to adjust to you early. But once you let us see what we can play this way, I think it's very hard to change in the middle of a half. Happened to us this year, UNC Wilmington. One half was one way, another half was another way. It happens. That's when it's really hard on players and coaches, because now you're like, what do you do? You learn from it, you try to adjust from it, but we play a certain brand of basketball. You can't tell a heavyweight fighter don't throw knockout punches. You can't tell them jab, 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 jab.
Right.
It's not who we are.
Two different dynamic players you went up against this weekend, obviously Billy Barron and Antoine Mason, but two differently dynamic players as well. And with Antoine, it's a lot of obviously him taking it upon himself and going and scoring, and he did that again to bring his team back and an opportunity for them, I should say, against on Sunday. But when you look at it, what was the biggest key for this team Sunday against Niagara?
Well, I think, you talk about two different players. Let's be fair to Mason, let's be fair to Billy. Both programs in different places.
Yes.
Jim, Coach Barron has that program a little more advanced than probably Niagara, just because Chris just got the job. Billy probably has a little bit better supporting cast. Niagara had some people leave when Joe went to Hofstra. So Mace is a prideful young man. And we know Mace. Mace is a New Shell kid. I know his father a long time. He's going to come out and just go mano-a-mano with you, and there's no stopping him. He's going to shoot the ball. I mean, he's had 8 halves in the first half where he shot 20 or more field goal attempts. That says it all right there. He's a guy, though, once he gets going, he's very hard to stop, as you saw Sunday afternoon, and I think he finished with 33. The thing with him is you want to make him take tough shots. You want to make him have to work for everything. I thought we did that. I thought we got to his legs a little bit. We made him defend, which is a big thing. Got to make guys like him defend. When you do that, you have a chance to tone down his aggressiveness a little bit, because he's worried about defending, foul trouble, and other things play in. And we're fortunate to get a win.
It seemed almost as soon as the final buzzer sounded on Friday, you started bringing up the comparisons to the Fairfield game at Fairfield prior to Niagara, and you said you were okay with the Fairfield loss if it helped you win against Niagara.
Yeah, and I was. And that's, that trip going into it, our goal was 2-0. So if we went up there and we were 1-1, whether we beat Niagara, lost to Canisius, beat Canisius, lost to Niagara, disappointing trip. We spoke about it. We said, hey, we got to go get 2. Let's go get it. So beating Canisius was great, but it wasn't a time to celebrate. Sunday at 4:30, 5 o'clock, that was the time to enjoy it. So as soon as the Canisius game ended, it was all about Niagara, and it was all about Manhattan. It was all about us. It was all about our brand, our product, in a sense of where, listen, we've been here before. We had a great home win against Siena. We're feeling good. Now we're going to play Fairfield, who just came up with a tough loss. Buzzer beater, Desi at the buzzer, St. Peter's. Okay, fast forward a month later, you have a great win against Canisius. Now you're going to play Niagara, lose on the tough buzzer beater, A.J. English. Same story. Teams maybe at the bottom of the conference a little bit better than their records. Okay, Niagara just played the top 1 or 2 teams to 1 point. Had us both beat. So don't tell me they're 3 and whatever. It means nothing. Records go out the window, especially when you're on the road. So that's what you got to get guys to understand. Our guys came out with that mindset. We lost it for a little. Said, okay, we're good. I thought we took our foot off the gas. We're good. We got this. And then it got into a dogfight. But we had great resolve. I thought at Fairfield we panicked a little. I didn't think we panicked at all yesterday.
Take me through the final play. 6 seconds left. Antoine Mason's inbounding the basketball, and Ramel comes up with a huge block to secure the win.
Yeah, we have an opportunity. I think we're down 2. George Beeman and I had a great meeting about a month ago, and he's such a funny kid. He's talking, and I hurt his feelings. And I said, why did I hurt your feelings? He goes, you didn't go to me with the game on the line. I said, this was at Quinnipiac, and he said, I said, George, everyone in the country knew where the ball was going to go if I went to you. And I said, I was trying to catch him off guard, and he goes, okay, so we're down 2. We draw something up. We go to George right away, get a quick bucket. He ties it. Then Emmy makes a great post feed. He sees a double. Hits Ramel on a dive. We go up 2 with a layup. We come down. We get a stop. We have an opportunity now to go up 4. George Beeman goes in and out. Winds up being a 3-point game. We come down, get another stop. George rebounds it, goes 1 for 2 from the line, 3-point game. And then George missed the layup to put us up 5. And so now it's their ball, 6.6 seconds. They call timeout. Basically, we're in a huddle and we're saying, listen, here's what we want. Let's make sure Mace doesn't get it. Your philosophy in that situation is you want to turn the ball handler one time. You don't want anyone to get a quick catch, drive it, and go coast to coast without having to change direction to rush the shot. We know it's going to be about a 4-dribble play that's going to happen. It's going to be 4 dribbles to a shot or to a pass shot. So we didn't want Mace to get it. We saw their alignment. We called a timeout. I saw Mace taking it out. We thought they were going to go back to Mace. They ran the same exact play against Iona the other night, but they had Taj McCall take it out. Mm-hmm. Different alignment. So we said, Mike, we want to put our strongest physically guard on Mace. Put Mike on him so if Mace pushed off, he couldn't get it. Mike did a phenomenal job of not fouling and not letting him get the ball. In the timeout, I said to our guys, they're going to get a challenge shot. Here's how we're going to play our pick and rolls. Here's how we're going to play any type of fade action. And I said, what I'm worried about, guys, is second shots. When it hits the rim, Ramel Brown stops me dead in my sentence and goes, ball's not hitting the rim. I got this. I said, all right, go ahead. They go out, sure enough. It comes down, ball never hits the rim, and the game's over. And that's what, that's my luxury as a coach, that I get guys like that just kind of take games over.
Said something similar like that against Iona last year.
Yeah, he said just put me in a line.
Just put me in a line to get the rebound.
It's okay. So no problem. I just don't know why he doesn't do it every But that's awesome.
As always, Coach, I like to get the fans. I've got a number of fan questions here. I actually had to write them down to make sure that we remembered who asked what. William asks, looking forward, chance to talk about the recruiting class for next year. Looking forward, how does the team compensate for the graduation of George, Mike, and Ramel?
You don't ever compensate for that. I mean, it's probably going to go down. I know guys like Keith and Lewis will have some arguments with me. But depending on what happens, maybe the greatest class in the history of that college, senior class. 3,000 point scorers, 2 guys who were top in the nation in their respective craft, shot blocking and scoring. Heart and soul of the team, Mike Alvarado. You don't replace that. But what you understand and what we've preached since day one is no player or group of players is bigger than this program. The brand is the brand. What we do is what we do. That's not going to ever change. So it's a matter of putting pieces in. And I don't say this to downplay it, but when we lost George Beeman, it took us time, but we adjusted and we figured it out. Mm-hmm. We adjust and we figure it out. We have very talented. Like next year's team, I think will be the best shooting team we've ever had. Mm-hmm. I think you have really 4 guys that are just going to be 1 through 4, just knockdown shooters from deep. So it's going to be a different type of team. Now, I don't know if we'll have, and I don't want to say we'll be as good as Iona, but you look at what Iona lost, they might have the best team they've had this year. Mm-hmm. And they just lost Glover, Machado, and Romo, 2 players of the year. You don't replace those guys. Yeah. Well, it's a similar conversation for us. We're not replacing those guys, but that doesn't mean that our brand and our team still isn't going to be very good, and we'll be in the mix of this thing again.
Mike wants to know.
And we have some very good players coming back.
There's some very good guys coming back.
Thank you, Rashawn Stores, Emmanuel, Shane Richards. So, I mean, there's some.
Carlton Allen.
Yeah, there's some. Rich Williams. There's some good ones. There's some good ones. Let's not discredit those guys.
Mike on Twitter, player roles seem to be key to our success, but whose role on the team boosts the team morale most when they execute?
It's funny. My first 2 years here, Rashawn Stores and I'm probably, you don't ever want to say you're closest with a guy. Rashawn and I have a very special relationship, and I learned my first 2 years, you're really trying to get guys to buy into a certain way, and you don't, it's non-negotiable. Mm-hmm. Pretty much. This is how it's going to be. It's on these terms, and if you don't do it, there's consequences for it. And Rashawn and I would have some real head-button days, and we talk about it, and I get his perspective, he'd get my perspective, he'd get a lot more of my perspective than I would his. And then we went to the Bahamas, and I'll never forget this. We were out on a cruise, and I saw how Rashawn, just what he did, the team followed him. He started singing, the team sang. He started dancing, the team danced. He went swimming, the team went swimming. And it was this amazing thing. I'm just watching in the middle of the Caribbean Ocean. I'm watching Rashawn Stores, and I'm like, it hit me. And I'm like, I got to make this kid our captain. I see it now. It hit me, and I needed to be in that environment. Mm-hmm. Because when you're on the court, you're so consumed with the basketball stuff. You're not consumed with life stuff. And now I'm seeing life. I'm seeing these guys follow this kid. He runs the program more so than I do. I could have said every guy get in the water, they weren't getting in the water. He gets in the water, every guy's getting in the water. So I'm like, this guy runs the show here. And I grabbed him literally as we're walking off the boat. I go, listen, I get you now. I said, you're the captain, you run the show. What you say goes. And literally, you know, it was a role he wanted, but I didn't know why he wanted it. And I got it then. And that's why I keep talking about this Bahamas trip. No one knows what it did for me and us. And literally, how he goes, we go. When he's ready to go, we're ready to go. And it's to a point now where, yeah, I'm going to check on George and Heimall and Mike, and you guys ready? And it's this simple. Ready. You ready? If Brady says we're ready, Manhattan's ready. And it's just, he's the greatest leader I've ever been around. And David Paget and him would be the two greatest leaders I've ever been around. He has such an impact on this program. I can't say enough about it.
Even saw it last night on the bus coming back from the airport.
Yes,
DJ
exactly.
Stores. DJ Stores.
And that's what I mean. He sings a song, it's a dance song. And I've seen that, you know, with him. It's just that he has this amazing. If you haven't met him, you haven't spoke, meet him, because he's a dynamic young man. It doesn't matter how old, what age, what race. He is a phenomenal communicator, and just a loving person. A guy. I mean, just think of this now. He has people driving to Buffalo to follow him and see him play.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. As a coach, I watch that. I say, who has people following? He has a following. See, great leadership is following. Do you have a following? Sean Storrs has a following. Sean Storrs go to Alaska tomorrow. There's going to be people who go to Alaska to see Sean Storrs. You can't say that about it. You know, it's special.
Another question, almost in a similar light, I guess, but who is the engine that keeps the Jaspers going? Yeah,
you know, it changes because you take George away from this thing, it affects us. You take Heimall away from this thing, or he's not 100%, it really hurts us. You take Mike Alvarado away from this thing, we're a different team. You don't have Rashawn Sewell, Emmy. Each guy, and I think that's what makes this team so unique, is each guy does have a specific job they do. And we've kind of changed our motto a little bit in the sense of where it's have fun, do your job. Because Emmy's job is different than Heimall's. Heimall's is different than AP. AP's is different than George. Do your job and have fun doing it. And when we do that, you know, it's something I got from the Seahawks. It's your productivity is going to be better when you have fun. Just, it's a fact. When I come to work and I'm in a good mood, like any of us, and I'm looking forward to getting that office, I'm going to produce better that day in the office. And that's what we're trying to create for these guys, is an atmosphere of come in and love what you do. Really love it. Really embrace it. Really live this. Don't just do it because we have to go play a game. Let's love what we do. And when we do that, I think our productivity levels go up. So for every guy, it's different, you know. And I can sit here and say, you know, if we didn't have Mike Alvarado, forget it. But I can also say about Heimall Brown. I can say about 8-9 guys on this team. We have an addition, Trevor Glassman, who's a walk-on. Yeah. What he's bringing to our bench right now, you know, and that's what I love. He is the best 11th man in the country. I'll put him up against anyone. You watch a Canisius game, watch his energy on the bench. Don't tell me that's not contagious. So every guy has their job, and we're doing it.
Finally, on Twitter, which player takes losses the hardest and who bounces back quickest?
Mike and Rich probably take it the hardest.
Okay.
Mike Alvarado, you got to really watch after a loss. Really, I mean, he you know, he probably takes it harder than I do. Where I got to watch how down I get, because I know whatever level I go, he's gonna go 4 below me. So if I'm at, like, you know, borderline, like myself in a room for a month, you know, Mike's, you know, Mike takes it really hard. Rich is another guy who really hates to lose. All our guys hate to lose, but Rich and Mike are two guys that you know, hit. I probably would say Heimall bounces back the best, because Heimall is a very smart IQ person, and what he's looking at is like, okay, what did I do wrong? Where can I get better? Okay, now I just got to go do it for the next game. He doesn't hold on to it. He hates losing. He hates it. I mean, big fella's been in tears now. All right, I don't have many players that's been in tears after a loss, so he hates losing. Literally been in tears about a loss, but he also understands he's going to do something about it quickly and then bounce back. So it's a different group. This team hates losing though. This team, it's gotten to a point they hate losing as much, if not more than I do. And that's, as a coach, you love that because now it means something to them, and you can you get their attention with a loss.
You had my broadcast partner, class of '93, Chris Williams, talk to the team on Saturday night before Niagara, and one of the things that Smooth brought up, and we talked about it on Sunday during the game, was the similarities between his team and this team. And the one that he brought up was how much the whole group likes each other, but then again, how much everybody understands their role, and any person on any given night can have that kind of night.
Yeah, you know, we put a lot of time in. Nick Saban said the biggest thing why he thought they didn't win the national title was because of relationships, player-coach relationships. We put a ton of time into relationships, and not fraudulent relationships. It's not, well, AP knows me. It's no, what do I know about AP? AP, what do you know about George? George, what do you know about Ramel? Do you know his struggle? Do you know about his brothers, his sisters, his mom, his dad, his upbringing, his family, his life, his vices, his strengths, his weaknesses? And we put a lot of time into that. That's not something that's phony. That's a real, you know, we know us in our darkest moments. My players know my darkest moment. I know their darkest moment, and we know our brightest moments. And we have a great bond with one another. And like yesterday's game had nothing to do with basketball. That was just a bond. The bond won that game. Those guys had a better bond than Niagara. Niagara will have a great bond in a couple years. They'll go through it. Our bond was better, and that's what won the game. It had nothing to do with the play I drew or anything. They just had a better bond. And in good teams, I think you see that. Very similar to Smooth's team with Keith and those guys. They've been through a lot of adversity in the sense of where lost in the MAC championship early in Smooth's career, kind of down, coaching changes, Lap comes in, Franny comes in, winning, exposure, momentum, handling success, hardest thing to do in college basketball. Our guys are getting that. A lot of similarities, but I'm proud of the group.
Looking forward for this team down at Ryder coming up this week. When you look at the Bronx, obviously here, a 16-point win on national TV. At times it wasn't even close to 16 points, but as you look forward to this game, what's changed?
You know, I think one thing about this league, like you look at us, I think we beat Fairfield by 24, 23, and now you play them the second time at their place in 2 weeks, and they took it to us. One game has nothing to do with the other. You know, Canisius goes down to Iona, beats them pretty good. Iona goes to Canisius, totally different ball game. One game has nothing to do with the other. We understand their strengths. We understand how well they shoot it. We understand, Kevin Baggett has said multiple times, he's going to have them ready. That's what I keep hearing. He's going to have them ready, so I know they're going to be ready to play us. And that's kind of, again, if I had one knock on this team, they don't understand the magnitude of what that name means, Manhattan, on other people's schedule yet. They haven't gotten that. And that's why I wanted Smooth to talk about it. Just when Manhattan comes up now, it means a lot more than it did, let's say, 2 years ago, or even last year for that matter. It's a different opponent approach. And that's why I'm so much into us. We worry about us. And Smooth made a great point. My first year, very similar to how Coach Lapis was. I knew players' girlfriends, credit scores, where they were eating lunch. As your team gets better, your preparation changes. And as Smooth said, as they got better and older, it was more about Manhattan. Same thing with us. It's more about Manhattan. It's more about us being ready. If we're ready and we come out and play our A game, we have a great chance. But we come down and play a C+, and they're playing their A game, we're in trouble.
You only get one home game. Not many home games here in this month of February to begin with, but you only get one more, I believe, coming up over the next 2 weeks at Monmouth, at Siena, at Ryder as well. When the way this team started out on the road caught a lot of people by, I don't want to say by surprise, but at least caught a lot of people's attention. To be able to win on the road, especially in conference play, what does it take?
You know, I think you got to have one great leadership from within with our players. We have that. Stores, Ramel, George, Mike. The second thing you got to have is guys who have been there. We've been at play. We lost at Loyola by one on underneath out of bounds. You know, we've gone through the pain of losing and knowing what happens on the road. We've played in front of at South Carolina, at LaSalle, at Illinois State, at Louisville, at Syracuse. There's not much this group hasn't seen.
Right.
I can't say that about next year's group. I can't say that about last year's group. This group has seen a lot. So they have all the. It's like when you look for a good mid-major to pick in the tournament. You look for great guard play. You look for senior leadership. You look for depth. Well, we have those factors. Same thing we have for being a good road team. Most important factor is we have very tough kids. Tough kids who don't get rattled. We have that, and I think that's shown by when teams make runs on us. We handle it.
Is it something, I know your focus is obviously and always is one game at a time, but with Niagara here just a week after yesterday's contest, when you wake up Friday morning or when the final buzzer ends Thursday night, do you immediately look and say they're coming out with much more intensity because of the loss, or is
No
it?
doubt about it.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, if I'm Niagara and I'm Chris Casey, you just played Iona in Manhattan. You had the game won.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, two different. Once they were on defense, had to get a stop, loose ball, AJ hits the three. Turn it around, opposite. They're on offense, need a bucket. Couldn't they have both games won? If I'm Chris and I need that signature win as a first-year head coach, like we got at Iona,
Mm-hmm.
they got a great opportunity to get it. And they have a great, I think they have Canisius Friday night at their place, or Thursday night, which is going to be a great venue for them. Those kids are going to have comments. They just played Iona and Manhattan tough. From a psyche standpoint, they can say, hey, we just played Iona and Manhattan. Both those teams beat Canisius. We got a great chance. Now let's go get Manhattan. You know we beat them. That, you know, and that's what that's what he should say. And now it'll be even better we get them at their place. We owe them one. He's going to probably say we're looking ahead, which we're not going to be. You know, we're going to be locked in on them come that point. But we understand that they're going to come in and want to get a win. And they got us last year.
The Bronx on Thursday night, Coach. What's the biggest key for this team?
You know, again, obviously the Bronx shoot it well. Daniel Stewart's terrific. Miles got to take away the three. At one point they were, I believe, second in the country in makes from three. All those things have to happen. Have to. Like, we turned the ball over way too much. 40 turnovers. We shot a horrible free throw percentage. We're doing a lot of good things. We're doing some bad things. But at the end of the day, we have to be us. Mm-hmm. If we can be Manhattan, I think we have a very good chance. If we can come out and do what we do, we have a good chance. And that's what it comes down to. We have to do what we do. We didn't do that with Iona and Quinnipiac. I take the blame for that. The second Quinnipiac game, I changed too much. I overcoached. Told my players about it. They were good with it. I'm good with it. We move on. Same thing. We just got to go be us now.
7 o'clock Thursday night, the Jaspers down at Ryder to take on the Bronx. You can listen to live audio beginning at 6:50 on GoJaspers.com. If you have a question you want to ask Coach, you can tweet us at GoJaspers. Email us, gojaspers@manhattan.edu.
And listen, his brother Brandon just came out of a bad breakup. Single. Was at our game this weekend. The reason he broke up, you gotta love his brother. He broke up with his girlfriend because she came to 3 games or 2 games. She was a jinx and lost and he said, I'm not having a coach. We're only gonna have winners around. Ashley, right?
T-O-E.
Team over everything.
Team over everything.
Was Ashley her name? So Ashley's on the back burner for the rest of the season. So look at his brother Brandon, great guy. Much more fun to be around than him. And I enjoy Brandon a lot more. So, we appreciate everything you're doing.
Brandon, of course, private first class, 10th Mountain Division of Fort Drum, New York.
Yes.
Everybody up there thinking about you guys. Thanks for everything that you do.
Yes, thank you for all the support and everything you do to allow us to do what we do. That never goes without saying.
Of course, follow Coach on Twitter at Steve_Masiello. Coach, thanks a lot for the time. Thanks for joining us inside Manhattan Basketball.